G'day everyone and welcome to 7 Questions, a podcast that shares the stories and compelling lessons founders, investors and leaders shaping our economy. I'm your host, Wayne Gerard, founder and investor at Partner and co-founder of Create Financial. Through 7 Questions, we explore the founder journey, idea to legacy, uncovering the insights, lessons and defining moments that shaped each founder and the amazing business they built. Whether you're a first-time founder, serial entrepreneur, investor, or someone looking for insights on entrepreneurship and what it takes to build a world-class company, these conversations are designed to inspire you, get you thinking, and hopefully you'll find some timely wisdom that propels your journey. 1/3 of Australians live in rental property. In this episode of 7 Questions, Ben White, founder and CEO of Ailo, shares his passion and some pretty raw experiences about the founder journey and building a world-class company. Ben's focus isn't on technology, it's on creating customer value, and that comes through in spades in the conversation. Ben focuses on helping tenants, property managers, property owners, and tradies work together. Like every founder, Ben's learned some hard lessons. He shares some pretty raw experiences which really help you to get a sense of his character and what it takes to build a team, to raise capital, to support customers and grow a great business. This episode is one of those episodes that you'll want to listen really closely to. Hope you enjoy my conversation with founder and CEO of Ailo, Ben White. Let's jump in. Hey, Ben, welcome. It's great to have you on the pod.
Hey, Wayne, thanks for having me.
Mate, let's start by helping people get to know you. Maybe start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what experiences or moments shaped your founder journey.
So I'm the co-founder and CEO of a property management platform called Ailo. My property management journey started 20 years ago. And before that, I was doing things and didn't think I'd end up in property management. But by sheer set of coincidences, ended up in a meeting, people talking about this industry I knew nothing about. And I fell in love with it there and then, love at first sight kind of story. And that was now 20 and a half years ago. And ever since then, it's been in it. It's one of those industries that it takes a long time to really understand. And what you think it is going in is not what it is. And you learn to love it along the way and understand all those nooks and crannies. And that's been my journey for 20 years. And along that way, it's been a commitment to how can this amazing industry be improved? How can it create better experiences for property managers, better economic returns and businesses for the business owners who run property management businesses, but of course also landlords and renters, their experience, and tradies for that matter as well. It's such an important part. 1/3 of all Australians live in a rental property, so it touches every corner of society. And every day I'm still excited to be part of it. And that's been my journey on the way through of how to play a role in helping shape the future of this amazing industry.
So what inspired you to start the company and what is the specific problem you're solving?
So what inspired me was, it depends on the positive or the negative. I was in a meeting where someone was pitching an idea of a business that was around 20 years ago. And they were talking about this industry, what those problems were. And I'd been in consulting and all sorts of things before that. And I looked at them and thought, oh my God, this is got a big industry. And I actually thought it was someone told me it's like a McDonald's. You just got to follow process. And I'm embarrassed to say I thought that was what it was. And so I spent the first couple of years pursuing that idea. But it wasn't until I was at a conference where someone was telling a story at a property management conference. And this person was on stage and she was talking about innovation in property management. And this is 20 years ago. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And she was saying, so here's what I've done in my business. Basically, what we did was we have fees with our clients. What I did was I went in and changed everyone's fees and raised them 10%. And I sent all the bills out. And if anyone complained, I'd say, sorry, it was a mistake and change it back. But only like 5 people called and the other 95 people just accepted it. And I remember thinking, what? And everyone clapped and thought it was incredible. And I couldn't believe it, that somehow along the way, a series of events have transpired where the idea of how value is created for customers and how that's good for a business. And so all the stuff you need to do it. Somehow they got kind of like needed an adjustment. It had all got out of whack. And that was the biggest eye opener for me when I realized it was not actually, this is not a McDonald's business. It's a services business. And a services business has a whole layer of it that people don't appreciate. And that's when you kind of got to get in fully into it. And so that started my journey and gave me a sense of what the future is. And what we try and solve, to your question of how do we think about from a technology perspective, is how do you help a business and a property manager be better to provide better services whilst also having a better experience as an employee of a property management business. It used to be in the old days that those were in competition. So if you wanted to provide a good service to your customers, and surely being a staff member, that had to place a lot of burden on a staff member. So that was hard. Or if you wanted to make money, you had to pay your staff less. That kind of zero-sum idea. And as I've kind of gone through it and I've got more confidence along the journey, is that idea is so antiquated. And in fact, if you can think about it as a system, an ecosystem, it is possible where everyone's better off. It is possible to make more money as a business, to pay your staff more, and for customers to be happier. All of that is possible if you approach it from that perspective. And I really believe that even though we are a technology business in a sense, in that our main product is manifested software, it's as much about changing culture. It's as much about understanding the ambitions of a business owner, helping them grow their business, helping them retain staff, helping them compensate staff, helping give landlords what they want, renters and so on. That's the business we're in, is helping people achieve that more than just selling kind of ones and zeros.
Mate, that's a pretty compelling, right? And you just shared a whole bunch of really, I think, unique insights that help to explain the way you're looking at the market, the community, or the ecosystem, as you call it. You're right. There are a lot of stakeholders in that ecosystem. And if you can help improve everyone's experience, increase the efficiency, drive a better outcome for everyone, surely there's a place for innovation in the center of that. So what is your secret sauce? What's the different approach you're taking to solve this problem? And why are you guys best?
I think you've got to be part of this industry, you've got to love it. You have to. Even the bits that you hate, you got to love. Yeah. And you got to understand all the dynamics and why is it this way? And what's the thing behind the thing? And what's the thing behind that thing? And if you can understand it, not as a technologist, I think if you come at this problem as I'm a technologist, sure, you do see a bit of, people, here's the classic argument. I'm really smart. I'm a product manager or a software engineer. I'm really smart. I've done more degrees than the average property manager. Therefore, I must be smarter than a property manager. Therefore, whatever they do, I can do better. So I'm just going to kind of just come in and write software for them. And that's it. And they kind of see the property manager as almost like a necessary evil in a sense of what it is. And there's a lot of businesses around that do that, in my view. And they don't have an interest in improving anything. They're a customer. And a customer is, if they buy my products, then I've achieved my goal. I think in this industry, and I'm sure it's true in a lot of verticals, I should say I've spent 99% of the last 20 years thinking about property management. I know very little about anything else. I'm broadly aware of society outside property management, but not really. I'm not allowed out much, and I'm terrible at dinner parties. But that said, in property management, you've got to understand, you've got to want to help achieve the outcome. So, for example, it's not just about saving them time, it's about reducing the anxiety. Yeah, when you kind of define what the problems are in a property manager, they have ambitions for a career. They want to have the ability to take on more responsibility and earn more money. They want to have less anxiety. They want to get thanked more from their clients. Like not things that are unique to it, but it's just core to humanity. Yeah, I love it. And I think if you see technology, in my view, in a vertical, which is where I spend my time, in a vertical platform like ours, technology is a tool. It's not the products. It's a program of improvement and change is the value. That's how you create value. Yep. You can't software and feature your way out of it, as much as you do need that, of course, but it's insufficient to achieve the goal. And that's where we spend a lot of time. imperfectly, unfortunately, because it's a hard problem. And we have to spend a lot of time internally in the team to explain it, because some of the ideas they don't come naturally. And sometimes the answer to a problem is 3 steps over. And if you solve that other thing, then there's a chain of events that lead to another thing being solved. And it keeps everyone busy and excited, but that's where I think that's the secret. To the extent we have any sort of secret, we tell everyone. That's the center of our sense of competition, is an understanding of the vertical and a commitment to improving, rather than a kind of a goal to sell.
One of the lessons I guess I've learned is that the best entrepreneurs, genuinely curious problem solvers, and at heart, they want to solve problems because they want to make life or something better for the people that have the problem. And I think what you're exhibiting is an incredibly important trait, right? Because I think entrepreneurs that truly have the opportunity to scale something, they do that because the ecosystem, their customers, and the rest of the network support them, because they are solving the problem, and they're solving it in a way that makes sense with empathy for the client. And conveying that message inside a software team is really hard, because not every person in any size business necessarily has the opportunity or the experience to put themselves in the shoes of the customer. So how do you do that? What's one of the things you're doing inside Ailo to help your team really understand the customer?
So there's no substitute than get to spend time with customers, right? You can abstract yourself from that as much as you want, but unless you're sitting with a customer and understanding it, then what I've learned is that that's it. Just spend time, and you've got to actually enjoy it. One thing I find, and I try and teach people on our team, is you can go and speak to a customer and kind of interview them.
Yep.
And you can ask 10 questions. But what you've really got to do is stop and have a cup of tea and just stop for a while and don't talk. And something else will come of that. And if you've got to understand what they're saying, and not just the words in a kind of grammatical sense, but really understand what's the thing behind the thing. And when you do that, you start understanding what a property manager, that reaction to, I go to bed at night and I wake up, I have to keep a pen and pad beside the bed. There's an example of someone came back a couple of weeks ago and had this amazing thing. They told me they keep a pen and paper beside the bed, because when they wake up in the middle of the night with something, they can write it down.
Yep.
And it's so much anxiety, and then they'll lose sleep and all the stuff that happens. And maybe what could we do to do it? And then, that unfortunately was one of those things we used to talk about. And I don't communicate that well, because that's an old story. And in some ways I felt bad I hadn't communicated that, but it was nice to see them get the thing behind the thing. You can always go and say, move that button to the left, and you forgot this thing. And if you can, in your experience, you would have heard everything. But what you really need to hear is the thing behind that. And that takes time. It takes patience. It's silence in some ways. Like sometimes it's the question you don't ask and just let it sit. And so getting the team confident in that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. I spent 20 years, and and you learn. I've made some, hate to think what I was like 20 years ago, but it's a skill. Some of the stuff I must have said. Occasionally run into people who remember in that time. And it's funny, I talked to someone who said to me 20 years ago, this person said to me, she said, you should be paying me for this time, not the other way around. And it was in hindsight, I said to her the other day, she's actually right. Now in hindsight, I didn't know anything. And I was off trying to sell her something, and God knows how embarrassing that was. But I think it's as much cultural. One thing I believe, like, I'm not a technologist anywhere near, I'm not a trained software engineer and so on. But one thing I do know is that problems eventually get reduced to culture. Eventually. Yeah, you can go down and say, is it a technical decision or whatever, but ultimately it's cultural, because if it comes to me, then there's some cultural dynamic where someone wasn't empowered or didn't understand the decisions they had to make or didn't understand the framework or whatever it might be. And so when it initially comes to me, I don't have to make a technology call, but it is a cultural decision. And I wish I'd understood that more. There's been times along the way where mistakes I've made is where I thought, that's technology, I should stand back from that.
Yeah.
And I think while that might be true in a strict sense, everything in my experience is cultural, everything. And where every decision ends up there, and it's because it's the canvas on which every other decision is made. And unless you're proactive in that, I wish I could have a time machine. If I could time machine and go back, it'd be to talk about that to myself rather than think you can kind of logic your way through every problem or it's just a process to solve anything. And in our case, the value we create for customers is a manifestation of our culture ultimately. And same for between a property manager and their clients as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, right? Like I think that you call it culture, I call it leadership. I think they really are the same thing.
100%. Yeah. The synonyms.
Yeah. And I feel like, good founders and good CEOs really appreciate the value of culture and leadership. And to the point where it is what they think about. In the tech company that I used to run, that I founded and grew, I used to talk about being in the business and on the business at the same time. And the concept of being in the business, doing the job, the task, the presentation, the meeting, the planning session, the follow-up, whatever it is. But at the same time, being on the business and looking for opportunities for the people involved in that to learn and grow, looking for ways to maximize it for the business, to make it repeatable and scalable, and all those other aspects of being on the business. And I think a leader who appreciates the culture can really help drive the team, an order or 2 orders of magnitude, drive their performance up. And it's great to hear you talk about it because, you go beyond just the product you sell into a business that truly cares about its team and the customer and the customer's customer. And that unlocks unique insights. But it also must present some hard decisions, some challenges. And so what's a hard decision or challenge that you've had to tackle as a founder that has really stood out for you?
There's two, we're actually probably the same problem. There's 2 times that, for me, that have really been a crisis of confidence. One, and they relate to where my vision and belief didn't resonate. And there's enormous doubt that comes from that. One is around with clients. We had back in 2021 was a really hard year for us. We were just starting to get going and we felt like we were, we launched in 2020. First year was what it was like. And then the second year was everything was starting to grow and we're putting our customers. Then we got this point where we started this churn rate. Can't remember what the number was now, but it was almost certainly, add 2, lose 1, if at best.
Yep.
And they were cries, and to sit down with customers and for them and to hear what they thought and me trying to explain what we're trying to do and them saying the reality, that to go back to the team and say, we got to build a team around a vision and then have to go back to the team and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And now it's not just, it's not their fault. They didn't execute incorrectly. It wasn't, you left a bug. Not that I wish that were true, but it wasn't that easy. It was, I'm sorry, I've led you incorrectly into a bit of a cul-de-sac. We have to go back a bit and go down this other path. And I missed it. And that is, it's shocking when that happens. And it creates a lot of doubt. I remember a lot of sleepless nights and walking around the block with the dog type things. And another one similar around the next year after those 2022, we were trying to do a capital raise. And again, the story didn't resonate with the capital market. And that was a shock as well on, I don't understand is that I don't know how many hundreds of meetings I had, maybe not hundreds, many, many, many meetings. And you know the story, how it goes. And, there's one thing, you hear the stories about failure. I can handle a bit of failure, sure, I can handle that. But when it's like 100 out of 100, like it's different from when it's like 2 or 3. And it's like, there's only 2 or 3 people. But when everyone is against it, and that is hard. And to go back to the team again and say, look, and we had to unfortunately make some layoffs. We have to make some layoffs. I can't raise money. Can't do it. And am I wrong? Is the vision wrong? And so on. They're hard times in a leadership role. And I'm sure you obviously had great success stories, or I'm sure there were, I don't know the downtimes. I imagine there were some.
Yeah.
But those times are lonely. They're very hard. And to then go to the team, and that the hard bit was going to the team and being accountable to them. That was the hardest part. And some people, unfortunately, cost them their jobs. Now, we did everything we could, and we did the best we could after that point. But that was the hard times. And for me now, a lot more humble on decision making and recognizing I can be wrong and all those things. Before that, it was like, I thought it was like Midas. I was going to have an idea. It's going to work. Of course it will. And you just go for it. And now I'm a bit more, I think, I'm not second guessing, but I am more patient to get to a decision. I'm more, I should say I try to be. I don't know if I am. I try to be. I try to let others make decisions instead of me, because that doesn't work. All the things. And so that they've been crises for me personally, both of those. And I wish I didn't have to go through them, but I learned a lot out of it. And I hope it doesn't happen again. I mean, they're the hardest parts.
Mate, I think, I've founded a bunch of businesses over the years, like 13 or 14, and some have worked and some haven't, and some have scaled globally and sold. And, all the lessons that you're talking about, I've lived myself, right? And I think most founders understand that, we'll experience a range of challenges and setbacks. And it's how it's what you take away from it. And it's the mindset that you have. And it's the willingness to be, I guess, open to the feedback. And I think that speaks a lot about a founder's character. And I think you have no choice, but you build character. Every founder builds character on the journey, right? And that comes across. It comes across in spades when as you scale the business and you empower people, because, I think back to one of the experiences I had where you're a small team, 10, 20, 30 people, and, you can make a lot of the decisions. But I think good founders understand, unless you empower your leadership team and build them, you're never going to scale the business to be truly global. And that means you have to let people learn, and inevitably some are going to learn through easy lessons and some are going to learn through hard lessons. And some of those mistakes are expensive, and watching them happen, knowing that they're probably going to happen, but having to let the team do them anyway it takes a lot of fortitude, I think, as a founder and a CEO, especially when you're trying to move fast, and especially when you've got the responsibility of investors' money and you're trying to make the best investment decisions possible. When I think about your business and where you're at, you talked about it before, but if you could go back now, other than the culture and leadership thing, what is something that you wish you knew then that is really helpful now? What's something that a early stage first time founder would you would definitely share with them as a bit of wisdom?
A couple of things I've only learned in the last year or two is particularly around feedback from anyone. I now see that as a gift. I'm like, feedback for me is like kid before Christmas, and there's presents under the tree. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if it's good or bad. I mean, I wouldn't say that, but it's not because I'm expecting good. I occasionally write handwritten letters. I got a note thing, and I just wrote a letter this morning to a business in Adelaide, a business I'd never met. He gave some pretty harsh feedback to a team member, and it was a gift. It was an absolute gift, and he was right. And that's now been published internally. It's like, this guy is right. It's hard to hear, but you got to hear it. And this guy, he taught me something about our business that I didn't know. I kind of knew, but I didn't acknowledge it. And I think that sense of you can't always be right. And the only way you can do it is react quickly to feedback. And if you're not encouraging that, if you're not hearing it, if you're trying to tune it out or say that guy's wrong, or what do they know, or this guy, whatever, which I would have been, I definitely was that person, 100%. That is, seeing that as a gift now, I think that's the nicest thing anyone can do, is give you honest feedback. It's the greatest compliment you can receive, because they care enough to do it. And if they didn't care, they'd churn. That's the end of it, or someone would resign or whatever, right? So there's that. And gratitude, I'm a lot more have a lot more gratitude now for people in our team that choose to spend their career on a vision that we set. And I think that's a great compliment. I think it's a enormous amount of trust. In the same way a customer puts their trust in your business, that's a statement of trust, because they're trusting their business rather, with your solution. Staff members entrust their career with you, the years of their life. And it's a sacred thing to honor. And I wish I'd known a lot of that beforehand. I would have been, I don't know how much time in life could have shaved off, but I would have gone there quicker. And everything that's not that just makes it go slower. It just means truth is harder to find and will take longer to find. And you'll spend more money trying to find it, and you'll be more frustrated, and you'll lose good people, and you'll lose customers, and you'll get lost, and the culture will suffer, all because you don't want to hear the truth, which is the only thing that matters in any of it, is the search for truth. It's the only thing. And so I think when I see people starting out, and I consider myself in one of them in many ways, but it's, are they committed to searching for truth, or are they trying to bullshit themselves? And that's like, got to pick one.
Yeah.
And if it's not truth, it's bullshit. It doesn't matter. It's either search for truth no matter what, or not. And that's what I've learned. Imperfectly, I'm kind of sounding like I exercise this religiously. It's a journey I'm on, and I'm committed to it, but I don't know, maybe 10th of the way through the journey.
I love it, mate.
So I don't pretend to be. I probably sound like I'm talking as if I know what I'm talking about. All I know is I'm on the journey. I'm on the journey, rather than being I'm not there. So yeah,
I think it's easier to empower your team if they realize you're on the journey as well.
100%.
And, you give them the chance to learn and grow. And if you learn and grow in front of them, that makes them feel like they have permission to learn and grow themselves.
Yep.
And, it's easier to be open to feedback when you feel like you're working in an environment that supports you learning and growing. Mate, the market is, the market at the moment, AI, there's a lot of technology change. There's a lot of housing price pressure and, political and cultural challenges at the moment. Electricity is expensive. There must be many things in your market that are kind of pivotal to the way you operate, and also the environment your customers are operating in. What's going on in your market at the moment, and how's that informing the direction and trajectory of the company?
So the biggest one that's happening in our marketplace is an overlay interaction between compliance. The regulatory frameworks for the rental market in Australia is getting higher and higher, the burden. I don't have a point of view on if that's good or bad. It just is.
Yeah.
And so as a business, most real estate businesses are not set up to manage the level of sophistication one must have to comply. So, and there's a race on between how to help an agency, a property management business, lift itself to be able to comply versus the regulators adding on more burdens. So that's a tension that, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's an ever-present, probably irreversible cultural change. And I think society demands it, right or wrong, and that's what it is. And so that's one role a business like ours needs to do, is to help people manage that complexity. On the other hand is AI, and there's been a whole wave of generative AI and a whole range of things that have been around now for a couple of years. The question now is around the agentic frameworks, and what does that mean? And what does it mean for the nature of the job? And the third and last one is the role of what is property management. There's two ways to think about what is property management. 99% of people would say property management is three things, and only because we've asked tens of thousands of people, and they would say collect rent, find tenants, and fixing when they break. That's basically the three jobs of a property manager. Unfortunately, those three jobs of a property manager is a small part of the job, and the job's much larger. It has to do with risk management and advisory role, a whole range of things. What I like to think of property management is the only place in real estate that has a continuing ongoing customer relationship between agencies and their communities. That's what property management is. It's a relationship business. It's lots of ways to add value. And increasingly the job is more between regulation, AI, and recognizing the breadth of value that can be added, that all the tables are shifting around what is property management, what is a business like ours, how do they help, how do businesses expand and grow and price themselves and so on. And so everything, it's an exciting time. I used to give this speech like 20 years ago about the future of property management, and it was always 5 years from now, it's going to be like this. Now, and that took 20 years, but now it's like it is happening. I must admit, I didn't talk about AI back then, but the other two were present. If you take those facts, there's two factions. It's a race to the bottom. Property managers are going to be threatened. It's all going to be AI. It's about low cost, low fees, churn and burn. That's one view. There's a view, I don't share that view, but a lot of people do. There's another view, which is actually, this is the best opportunity to create. If you had to design a business that said, here's a business for you. You're sitting in the middle of 5% of the Australian economy.
Yeah.
1/3 of the population deal with it. It's the most important emotional asset. It's also where you live. So you're at the top and bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. You're in both.
Yep.
You've got a lot of complexity that you can add value in. There's a mortgage. There's an insurance product. There's all this economic activity associated with it. What do you think about that industry? You think that is an amazing industry to be in. That is what I want. I want to be in that one. And so if you stand back and look at it, there's never been a better time. I've never been more optimistic about the future of, quote unquote, the industry. It is going to require a lot of people to change though. And the bet is, and I'm betting they can a property management business evolve into that business to reach full potential? Or do you believe it can't do that and they're going to fall into commodity? That's going to split. It will have to happen probably like every industry, but nothing's safe anymore. I think I'm betting on people can pull it off. I'm betting on that we can pull off the platform that helps those businesses pull it off. So I've kind of picked a side. There's lots of people who are on that journey too, but there's also people that are going to go the other way. History is going to judge.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we're at.
Like I look at AI, and you talked right at the beginning about one of the things that inspired you to start the company was trying to solve the frustration that your customers face. And surely AI can help reduce the administrative burden and remove a bunch of the frustration so that they can actually spend more time managing relationships and improving the experience for their customer.
Exactly. Everything's hidden. I mean, this is great AI stories. What it is, so much knowledge is hidden or is unstructured, and all the stories you know all about. And the ability to create structure out of that unstructured, to give people in the context. So if Wayne, you call and the phone number comes up, then the screen changes, and so that everything they need to know is there. And so when they pick up the phone, the property manager have an anxiety of what's this about and what's he calling for? I know what it's about. I can pick this up and maybe they suggest it's probably going to be about this. Here's what you might say. That's the type of thing I think a property manager wants. I think it's enormously value creative. Whereas today, if you were to call your property manager, I got to tell you, if you put a heart rate monitor on the average property manager, when that phone rings, it's not good, because I don't know why you call. Firstly, they don't know you're calling. Once they get through that, why are you calling? What is it? And I can't find the thing because it's not designed. Yeah. The legacy is not designed to solve that. It's like there's a big filing cabinet and you call, I got to go and find the filing cabinet. It's basically the same thing. Doesn't help solve the problem. And I think that is what's going to define the difference in probably lots of vertical platforms, but that's the promise, is context, finding that line between advising and supporting, but not standing between the humanity.
Yep.
I don't think, if the future of the economy is no people, then I don't know, that's probably not good for our business, frankly, if that's where it ends up. I don't think that's right. Maybe it is, but we got bigger problems than my business at that point. So yeah, it is fascinating to be part of it. It's every day, as you know, anyone who thinks they know the answer is either lying or deluded. And I think you've got to make, what I the way I think about it, for what it's worth, is I'm trying to pick value-based decisions on where you just think it's going to go, and not chase the latest model or the latest whatever. It's how's value going to get created, and you got to own that, and chips will fall where they're going to fall. I believe value will get created one way or the other by somebody, so it might as well be us.
I feel like AI is an opportunity to have another conversation with the customer about how do you help them remove frustration.
Exactly.
And that's value equation. Yeah.
So you don't hear much about that in the AI world. You read, obviously, 99% of AI is the consumer stuff. It's the LLMs and so on. Yeah. I don't think we've yet seen, I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure there's lots of it, but I don't see a lot of what you're describing yet in enterprise or vertical platforms yet. They're still, I think, but I absolutely agree with what you're describing. I think that is it. I think that's anything that create a closer, better, deeper relationship is what the value is. And anyone that's trying to think I can get away from relationships, I hope that's not true. I'd feel sad if that's true, because I don't like that future personally, but I just don't think that's where the economy will end up. I don't think that's the way people think about it.
I actually think AI will free people up to build more meaningful relationships, because the administration will be taken care of. And so they can become proactive. And I think the proactivity will just drive a cultural revolution. And I'm excited for that. So you've got lots and lots going on, right? You're building an incredible business. How many staff you got now?
About 110.
Yeah, right. And how far and wide are your customers spread?
All or every state and territory in the country, in Australia.
Yeah, it's huge, right? Yeah. So as a founder, how do you, with that level of, commitment, how do you sustain your energy? How do you sustain your mindset? How do you sustain your relationships, with your team, with, at home, with your investors, with your customers? What are you doing in those areas?
So I get energy from visiting customers. If I'm ever down, the good thing about it is I can get in the car and see one within 30 minutes, almost wherever I am. So that's the good news. And that's even the bad customers I get energy from, because you get that kind of, like, we've got to fix it. Come on. So that's great. I'm finding as I've gotten older, taking kind of there is a much tighter connection between mental and physical energy than I'd probably appreciated. I spent a long time just doing the trade-off. And one of my brothers actually sat me down and gave me his advice on this. And basically, the way I now see this as, it might sound indulgent, but I now see taking care of yourself physically is part of the job.
Yeah.
It's not like people talk about work-life balance and so on. I have a slightly distorted view of that world, but I don't expect to impose it on anyone. But one thing I do believe is that it's my job to be as healthy as I can. That's actually part of the job, because if you're not doing that, you can't lead as well as you can. So I think it's part of the job description. So if I go to the gym during the day, I actually think that's as important as taking a meeting.
Mate,
now, I didn't think that before. I thought that was, if someone did that in my team, I think they were like doing it in personal time. I don't believe that anymore. I was wrong on that, I think. I think it is, that's the job, that you got to be your best. And if that's how you get your best, or whatever it might be, then that's what you should do. As you know, in roles like ours, you don't ever stop. So it's not like doing it on a Saturday morning is any different from doing it on a Tuesday afternoon. Like, what's the difference?
There is none, right? Like, because we're on all the time.
Yeah. So there's no difference. Yeah. So you might as well do it when you can.
And what about family? How are you, getting balance there?
So the only thing that would take me away from anything at work is the family.
Yep.
And so that's everything else I would sacrifice, but that. And I've got a family life. We've got kids scattered around the world now and all sorts of things, and so that's not as easy as it used to be. But that's why a lot of that's the why for me. And so it's one thing I've always feared is, what's the point if that doesn't work? What's the point? So that's where I've kind of got it in that sense. But I give up a lot of other. I'm happy to give up a lot. And no doubt family, there is a sacrifice, and the kids do pay a price, which it's heartbreaking, but And I sometimes wonder how selfish is entrepreneurship. And we've talked a lot about this thing as giving and leading and so on, but there's also a selfishness act to it, which I am largely, because I must admit I get an enormous amount of meaning and joy from it as well. So, but nothing's as good as as family.
I think they're really wise words, right? And not just as a founder, but as you, I guess, mature in your life journey, understanding the importance of exercise as part of your role or your identity, understanding the commitment to family and being really practical about work-life balance. I share your kind of thoughts. I think differently to a lot of people about when it comes to work-life balance. I don't believe you should try and balance your work and life and everything in one day. I take a longer view and know that there are times when you've got to put priorities on things. So it's the way it is, mate. The business is coming to the end of 2025, poised for 2026. What's coming up? What's next? And how can people, get involved in the journey that you're on with Ailo?
So for us, next year is really, for us, it's understanding we want to grow the footprint of when someone thinks of what a property manager does, we want to or a property management agency does, we want to expand that definition. And so the ability to expand the role, which has all sorts of things that fall under that around the breadth of services is offered to landlords and renters and tradies, the type of skills and how our platform supports them in that journey and so on. So that's really for us, we're still in real aggressive growth phase. And we measure that both in terms of how many properties are on our platform, which is a function of selling to a real estate agency, as well as then the engagement from landlords and renters and what we call revenue per property. So they multiply by each other. They're both important. And for us, it's moving ultimately from seeing what I'd like us for a year from now is not describe ourselves as a technology platform business, but be in the business of helping customers transform themselves. And technology is a part of that. I think it should be, I'd like us not to talk that way anymore. Unfortunately, everyone puts labels on you, so it's hard. But I don't want to see ourselves anymore as a technology business. I think that's like, I was hearing someone the other day talking about, remember people say, I'm a digital business because I had a website. You go back, at a certain time. Everything's it doesn't mean anything anymore. In a sense, you've got to be focused on how you create value. And that is not, I built good software. It's the tools I gave you, whatever they are, to help create value or solve a problem or things we talked about. I'd like us to get past that. And one of the ways people could help in society, if I had one wish, in a perverse kind of way, it would be for people to not aggressively, but start demanding more of their property managers because they want to do more as well. And it's helping everyone break out of this mindset of what is property management and what's the job and so on. Landlords don't know there's a choice between how they get their money. They can either get money once a month and they're sitting earning no interest in a trust account, or they can get it daily and they can control the money. They can pay things on a credit card. I'm not here to spruik the platform, but there's choices they have. And if they started being more aware of it, I think they'd make better choices and the industry would evolve and move with it because like any industry, it follows where the customers are going. And if customers ask for more, then they're going to get it. That's, like any industry. So that would be good for us if we're all on the journey to improve. If everyone says it's good enough, I don't want to change, I don't really care, then there's no change to be had. We should be, that wouldn't be great for him. I don't know what that would be, and I don't believe it. But that's where it would end up. And I think all society moves forward through starting to raise expectations on each other.
So I'm a landlord, right? Like I have an investment property. Can I buy your product and or use your product, or do I have to go through a property manager?
We have to go through a property manager. Our business model is support. The way our model is to support agencies first and foremost. Yep. But there's hundreds of them on, and you'd ask your agency, how come you're not on Ailo?
Yeah.
Or send us an email and we'll help you find one who is. Which we do get a lot of emails actually from landlords who are on it with one agency but have another property in another city and say, hey, they email us in support. They've got a property in Adelaide, who I love this app. How do I get it? And so on, which is fun. It's nice to ring a customer and say in Adelaide and say, hey, we've got a customer for you who's hot to trot.
Yeah, that's really cool. Mate, let's land this plane. So I do a quick set of rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yes.
First thing that pops to mind, coffee or tea?
Tea.
Morning or night?
Morning, 100%. That's
beach or mountain?
Beach, come on. You don't even need to finish the sentence. You don't need to finish it.
Books or podcasts?
Books.
Risk or routine?
Oh, come on. That's risk.
Of course. Gym or cardio?
Cardio.
Love it. And lastly, legacy or lifestyle?
Oh, that's a great question. That's I'd like to say lifestyle, but it is legacy, and I'm not sure that's healthy. I'm not sure. I don't know if I like that answer. The rest of them, I like mornings and beaches, but I don't know if it's good to be in for legacy. I think I worry it asks too much of you.
Someone's got to do it, right?
And anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So I might as well get used to it.
Yeah, fantastic. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Wayne.
On 7 questions. It's been great chatting to you, and we'll publish details of a link to your website. And if people want to get in touch, I'm sure they can reach out. Is that okay?
100%.
Excellent. Have a great Arvo. Thanks for listening to this episode of 7 Questions. If you'd like to learn more about the founders, you can get a link to the full show notes in the description below. Have a great day. We look forward to you joining us on the next episode.